morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Before we get into the main part of today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about where we are. Blackville was named by a man by the name of William Black, a loyalist. He was the third or fourth mayor of St. John history. He named this place after himself, and around 200 plus years ago. I often, as a child, felt that Blackville got its name from black flies. I was convinced of it. And I remember being a little boy and saying, you know, there aren't any black people here, and there aren't anybody with the last name Black. It's got to be black flies. Lo and behold, it was the former mayor way back in the 1830s who came here and named it. He was also the governor or commander-in-chief, what we call premier today. Great story. This area where we are used to be a barkyard. It was a huge pile of 8 or 9 acres of sawdust. Wasn't overly appealing. It had a railroad running through it, and we turned what used to be mills way back, a barkyard, into one of the most beautiful parks in New Brunswick. I would like to speak, my wife Shannon cannot be with us today, nor can my youngest child, Meadow Rose. Meadow is in daycare in Douglastown, and my wife is a school teacher in Nigawak, and she takes her job very seriously, and she would have liked to been here with me, but you know, she has an important job, she takes it seriously, and she had to be at work today. I'd like to also thank my colleagues, MLA Ted Fleming, MLA Carl Urquhart, MLA Bill Oliver, MLA Stewart Fairgrieve, former minister, and MLA Robert Trevors. And I also seen my good friend here sitting in the front, former MLA Doc Parrott. Thank you for being here. I'm also missing a very important person here today, and if there's anyone I'm missing, I'm sorry, I must not have seen you. MLA and my candidate that's also going to be at the convention with us, and very good friend of mine, MLA Brian MacDonald. My friends, my fellow New Brunswickers, I'm pleased to announce that I'm offering for the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party in New Brunswick. Mes amis, mes collègues de Nouveau-Brunswick, je suis heureux d'annoncer que je me propose comme candidate à la direction du Parti Nouveau-Brunswick, le Progressive Conservateur. Everywhere I go in New Brunswick, I hear that both major parties are the same. I hear that governments are all the same, and the politicians won't make the tough decisions. I hear Liberals and Conservatives are the same. I hear the system is broken, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. Apart from tinkering on this or that program or policy, both parties have been committed to the status quo and maintaining the status quo. This is what I hear in the coffee shops, at the baseball parks, at the soccer fields, at the hockey rinks, at the Circle K, at Tim Hortons, everywhere. I hear this everywhere I go. I've been a member of the legislature for almost 6 years now, and at times I've been frustrated, even appalled, by the lack of meaningful action on so many files. Politicians are people too, and it is a difficult job, but New Brunswick cannot keep the status quo. It's not working. The big challenges and tough decisions have been avoided, swept under the rug and carpet, only to be left to be faced by our children and grandchildren. This cannot continue. We cannot keep saddling the next government with the promises made a month before the election, and saddling all of the children of New Brunswick with these issues in the future. The healthcare budget alone could swallow the entire New Brunswick budget in a little more than a decade. It's a very scary thought when you think of bridges and roads and education and so much more. We can't ignore them anymore. Tough decisions have to be made, and I will make them. What are the tough decisions? Alors, quelles sont ces décisions difficiles? Fostering positive relations between our cultural and linguistic communities, addressing our fiscal problems with action, creating the conditions for businesses to grow and invest and thrive and allow the businesses to create the jobs, and increasing the effectiveness of our education system, modernizing and making healthcare system responsive and focused on the patient needs and their outcomes. Almost 70 years ago, a woman of color by the name of Rosa Parks, living in Alabama, took a seat on a public bus. It became known as the Equal Rights Movement in the United States, or civil rights, as most of us remember it or learned about it. This was the beginning of a revolution to bring fairness, equality, and harmony for all people. In that same spirit, 2 decades later, New Brunswick proclaimed the Official Languages Act. Its goal was to provide New Brunswickers services in both official languages. At the time this was brought in, Premier Richard Hatfield, after both finalizing all of what Louis Robichaud put in place, Hatfield didn't even change a comma in that legislation. And do you know why? Because it was working at the time. It was working in the 70s. It was working in the 80s. It's so important if we are to live together as fair-minded New Brunswickers. Because back then, the vision understood at the time was that we need to foster harmony and mutual respect among all peoples in our province. La vision comprise à l'époque était de favoriser l'harmonie et le respect mutuel. Over the years that followed its launch came a series of regulations, policies, and other initiatives put in place to fulfill this vision of linguistic harmony and fairness in New Brunswick. And I'm inspired by that. That happened here in the 60s through the 70s. We were following a much less physical action here in New Brunswick than they had in the United States. It can't be a direct comparison, but all over North America there was issues and measures were being put in place to promote equality throughout North America, and New Brunswick included. My goal is inspired by the vision of equal opportunity, the program of the 1960s that brought New Brunswickers together and fostered economic opportunities in every part of the province. Though I represent the PC party, it's not a depressing moment to acknowledge when another party once had a good decision. That was a good decision. And I'm sure at the time it was revolutionary, it may be controversial, but it simply meant that everybody would have an equal opportunity in life. Who could ever disagree with it? I am also inspired by the vision of the Official Languages Act, an act that was born in the same decade and aspired to bring our linguistic communities together so that all people and cultures that make of our province, les Acadiens, les Bréons, the Passamaquoddy, the Mi'kmaq, the Maliseet, the English, all the people in New Brunswick could live and work in peace and harmony and respect for one another. The Commissioner of Official Languages Office was created more than 30 years after the Official Languages Act, and the Commissioner was appointed at that time. In recent years, it has become increasingly apparent that the policies, regulations, and initiatives taken by this office and its current Commissioner have failed in their mission. A little more than a decade later, the office created, I believe, in 2003, we find all too often that thousands of New Brunswickers believe that many of these policies and initiatives have been divisive, unfair, and wasteful, breeding ill will and stereotyping individuals and groups. In New Brunswick, we have to live in complete respect of one another. We have to set the bar higher, because we're better than that. Earlier this month, the head of one of the largest public service unions, CUPE, referred to the agents of this office as being described as the language police. It was in response to yet another story of a New Brunswicker being fired because they were not bilingual in a job they'd been working for years without any complaint. Public servants are worried about the security of their jobs and about the language police that may be checking up on them, doing a language audit, sneaking up on them just around the corner. New Brunswick people as a whole, province-wide, have witnessed the growing aggressiveness of this office and its commissioner for long enough. There is a concern that millions of dollars of taxpayers' money is being wasted on the duplication of public service in order to fill arbitrary language quotas. Martin Luther King Jr., in his famous speech in Washington, made this statement: "I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." New Brunswickers, I've got a similar dream. I got a dream that my 4 little children, all of yours, will live in a province where they will not be judged by the languages they speak, but by the quality of their character. When elected Premier of New Brunswick, lorsqu'il a été élu Premier Ministre de Nouveau-Brunswick, I promise you that my government will give priority and move quickly to bring harmony and respect and reasonable policies to every part of this province, regardless of language or culture. And then there is a fiscal challenge. This situation has only become greater in recent years, and successive governments have not worked in the public's interest to solve it. Instead, they've decided to protect the status quo. In order to win the next election, and the results speak for themselves, we've had 2 one-term governments in a row, and there's another one on its way. The last 2 governments increased the debt by about $2 billion each, and the current one is well on its way to even shattering these numbers. Our current debt is over $13 billion and climbing. That means every one of us owes $17,000 or $18,000 to the bank for mismanagement and bad decisions made by these governments. Closely related to the challenge of cleaning up the fiscal mess is the challenge of creating opportunity and growing the economy, which has been stagnant for most of our recent history. Point in case, there were 12 mills from McGivney to Chatham 15 years ago. There's 2 today that are in operation. We now have fewer New Brunswickers working in the province than we had 10 years ago. Last year, we lost 6,800 more jobs, and as we know, thousands of New Brunswickers exit the province every month, every week, and every year to find work. The result is they build lives elsewhere, they get married elsewhere, their kids are elsewhere, our population declines, our school enrollment declines, and we have too much negativity surrounding all of this. We need to change the page in New Brunswick. If we can do it, we're going to do it. New Brunswick governments over the years have spent millions of dollars annually, taxpayers' money, your money, to provide risk capital to businesses that were unable to secure it privately because their deals were too risky. Their projects and business cases were bad. They could never work. Governments have provided millions of taxpayers' dollars to multi-million-dollar corporations who took it simply because it was there for the taking. It was too easy. Come to New Brunswick. We don't want to come. Oh, don't worry. We'll fly you here. We'll even take over your payroll. Come to New Brunswick, we'll pay for the whole thing. And then the government will run out and get a photograph and say, look at the jobs we created. They didn't create anything. They just use your money to get a photograph taken, and everybody pays for it, and everybody pays for it. We bribe multi-million dollar corporations by offering them training grants and other subsidies ranging from $7,000 to $50,000 per job. All too often when the grants run out and the money dries up, the ventures close and leave the province. We see it all the time. Then the pressure's on the government. Well, they should bail them out. You know, here's another 10 million. Stick around a couple more years. It's not working, folks. That's never going to work. And I can tell you something here today, I wouldn't put up with that. I wouldn't. That would not be a part. If I'm Premier, and that's what I want to be, that is something I'm doing away with. That's hurting our province. The result in recent years, we have actually written off $50 million a year in bad debts to enterprises that have gone sour at the expense of us, expense of all of you, the taxpayers. We spend in total over $250 million per year on business development, attending countless trade shows, conferences, and corporate welfare, and yet the job losses count continue to mount. If our strategy of corporate welfare worked, we would actually have one of the most prosperous economies in the country and in the modern world. Instead, we have one of the poorest. We have one of the poorest places in North America, right here. Corporate welfare does not work. Le bien-être des entreprises ne fonctionne pas. Another issue I'm committed to addressing relates to the matter of transparency and accountability on government dealings. This is at the core of the public's distrust with politicians and governments alike. As an example, we have heard about the establishment of a lobbyist registry for more than a decade. Yet government after government has failed to deliver this simple tool for the benefit of public transparency. Why has this not been done? I have to ask that question. We should, we must, we will, I will establish an ethics commission or office or similar office that will include a lobbyist registry, recall legislation, and legislation that will require full disclosure of all financial contracts and financial assistance currently outstanding in New Brunswick. So how are we as New Brunswickers going to fix the fiscal mess and promote a business-friendly environment that will create the positive environment and the positive climate for business? Here's what we will do as a start. My government will eliminate duplication, redundancy, and ineffective practices in language matters, the divisive ones. This will include reforms to our bilingual job quota practices. We will eliminate the office of the Language Commissioner and replace it with a new modernized office focused on equal opportunity to serve all New Brunswickers. We will eliminate wasteful economic subsidies, stop funding risky capital to businesses that can't obtain it from the private sector, and stop giving job subsidies to multi-million-dollar corporations. And lastly, we will dramatically reduce the number of economic development organizations such as Opportunities New Brunswick, Regional Development, New Brunswick Growth Program, Innovate Program, and many more, which will save us well over $200 million annually. This will significantly reduce the ineffective, bloated economic development bureaucracy that's never worked for us anyway. Lastly, We will eliminate the provincial government income taxes on small and medium-sized businesses. Nous éliminions le gouvernement provincial impôt sur les petites et moyennes entreprises. Education. Another challenge facing New Brunswickers and its next premier is to improve the effectiveness of our education system, achieve better results, accountability from public schools, community colleges, and universities. We have one of the lowest rates of adult literacy in North America, yet we spend more than any other jurisdiction on our public schools, even as our student population continues to decline. We pay more and get less. This has to change. We need common sense for the common good, and I can tell you, it's not the teacher's fault. We never go to the teachers enough. And I want to put this in here right now. We need to let the teachers teach and get out of their way. That's what we have to do.
Here, here.
I see a teacher right now, she's smiling. As your next premier, I will consult with teachers and parents as we seek ways to meet this challenge. We must strengthen our community college system and consult more with employers so we can better serve their needs and the taxpayers. But we must also challenge our universities to give us full value for the investment we make in their endeavors. Healthcare touches all New Brunswickers each and every day. Santé touche tous les Néo-Brunswickois, chacun et tous les jours. An effective and responsive healthcare system must serve the public, not just when we are in critical need, but every day to improve the quality and length of our lives. Not having access to true primary healthcare in your community means that people have to travel long distances, spend time and money, go to a hospital, which is the most expensive way to deliver medical services. We must focus on wellness, not illness. Things like mental health, mental fitness, and nutrition, and all of those important aspects that keep us healthy, and put real healthcare services back into the communities where they belong. New Brunswickers deserve world-class healthcare services, and we will implement changes to improve all access points to the healthcare system. I will establish a medical action group made of doctors, nurses, industry-leading medical consultants, and public health specialists across the board to oversee the transformation to a truly patient-focused healthcare system. We must focus on the patient. That's got to be primary. We have a 5-month campaign in front of us to decide the next leader of our party and the next premier of New Brunswick. Over the days and weeks, I intend to expand on my thoughts and take this message far and wide to every corner of our province. In the weeks leading up to the decision to offer, and I can tell you folks, I looked at it for a long period of time. And it's strange because you hear so many things when you want to do something like this. Oh, don't do it. Oh, you're too young. Oh, you have too many kids. Oh, it's not your time. Oh, wait till 10 years from now. There is no tomorrow. There's no tomorrow. We've elected a 42-year-old Prime Minister and a 32-year-old Premier. I'm 38. I have 4 children. I'm making the right choice. I spoke to hundreds of New Brunswickers. Les Acadiens, les Bréons, English. Lots of people say they're Scottish and Irish. I'm both. A little bit of Mi'kmaq in there. I spoke to some Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, Passamaquoddy. Been all over the province. And we need to look after New Brunswickers. We have to focus on one New Brunswick. We have to forget about, the South wants all of this, and okay, well, the North needs to get this, and the French want this, and the English got to have this, and that's got to go. That is hurting the province more than anything. We're one province. There was a premier in the past that said New Brunswick will be strong when the regions are strong. That's true. I believe in that. We have to forget about all this stuff. We all love our cultures, and we should promote the daylights out of all of them. But we got to get back to business. New Brunswick is in dire straits the way it is. And I'm telling you here today, I'm here to fix it. I'm offering that today. I'm a proud New Brunswicker. Strong roots in my community. Je suis fier de Nouveau-Brunswick avec des forts racines dans ma communauté. I coach soccer and baseball and sing at benefits. I'm a regular guy. I've always been. Fly fisherman too. I'm one of you. That's important. You know, one of the most difficult parts was watching that the speech didn't fly away. It's one thing to have it outside, but there's some first world problems up here, you know. My wife and I have been fortunate to travel and work abroad, and we've chosen to settle and have a family here in the province we all love. We are invested in the community. My wife's a school teacher. When I have the time, I coach many sports and play music and try to stay out of trouble. You know, when you live around here, you got to watch that too, right? As a father of 4 young children between the ages of 2 and 10, being close to my family and friend, it hurts too much to see the pain and suffering, the traveling, the out-migration. We have to have a better plan because many of our former governments, probably all great people, they continued on similar paths on some of the big ones. We've got to change that. We have to do better for the kids. We don't want to saddle them with a province that could go bankrupt 10 or 15 years from now. We don't want that. We don't want that headline. We need to change the front page here in New Brunswick. For decades, government after government, they continue with the status quo. It has to stop. And you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. Mais il n'y a pas à être de cette façon. Listening to everyday, hard-working New Brunswickers, putting their interests first. This hasn't been happening for years. We have to stop catering to the special interest groups and big business interest, which is often against the interest of everyday citizens, like all of us. We can and we will change the future for all of us in this beautiful province of New Brunswick we call home. Bon sang pour le bien commun, pour un MB. Common sense for the common good for one New Brunswick. Thank you, merci.